November is just around the corner, and congressional candidates are working hard to reach out to local voters. Tonight, we sit down with local Republican Congresswoman Mary Bono Mack, now in her 8th full term in the House of Representatives. Welcome, Congresswoman.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Thank you for coming. I want to start with something very topical. Yesterday, Jared Lee Loughner, the Tucson shooter, pleaded guilty to all those counts of shooting people, including your good friend, former Representative Gabrielle Giffords. Since about a month ago, we've had almost 100 people killed or wounded in mass shootings in the country. After that Tucson shooting, the president asked for a discussion about gun control and also mental health legislation. All of that talk, it doesn't seem like a whole lot has happened right now. And since then, what's your take on this?
Well, I think it's an important conversation we should have. You know, I've been focusing on mental health, and I think you have to tie that into the prescription drug epidemic that I've been focused on for a long time. It's sort of one and the same, and I think it is worth elevating it a higher level of debate in the Congress. I think for me, mental health really is where we start with this discussion.
And making sure that folks who have mental health issues don't get guns. And I think to take it a little bit further and bring it back to gun control too, people who are very well known within the military and in law enforcement have said that in some cases there should be no reason for people to get their hands on weapons or ammunition like the kind that these shooters did. What do you think about that?
Well, you know, again, I think that's a great question, but for me, this is sort of the chicken and the egg conversation. The mental health is the underlying here. That is the question. People didn't go crazy because they had guns. They had guns and used them when, you know, because they were crazy. Excuse the expression. But that is where we need to start, is truly discussing mental health. You know, you're right about Gabby Giffords. I'm glad that he pled guilty. I know that he plea bargained and will have life in prison. I'm assuming that Gabby probably feels better about that than the death penalty. I'm conflicted. I remember the victims who did die and think that the death penalty should still be on the table for him. But again, the issue for me is mental health first and foremost. Veterans are an important population that we need to look at mental health. Prescription drug epidemic affects them too. I've been working hard on that topic, and it is a small component of the larger issue of mental health.
Since we're talking about mental health, let's talk about health care legislation and the President's Affordable Care Act. Republicans and other members of the House of Representatives have brought this forward for discussion and for repeal 33 times. CBS News reports, in fact, that representatives have spent about 2 weeks of their time debating this issue that pretty much goes nowhere in the Senate. Do you have a plan for putting forward a health care plan that you could stand behind, since you have actually come out in favor of some of the provisions that are in the current Affordable Care Act, for example, not precluding people with pre-existing conditions and allowing younger people to stay on their parents' insurance plans?
Well, first of all, that's a great question. And, you know, let me say something about the multiple votes in Congress. What's interesting is the American people haven't decided to let the issue go away. The American people still don't like government takeover of their health care. They're still very, very upset about it. Nobody is saying that their health care is better or cheaper. Nobody's saying that they have access to better doctors. The debate still rages on within the American people. So I think that's important, number one. But number two, for the federal government to take two programs, Medicare and Medicaid, and decide that the only answer to the health care problem in America is to expand the two programs that are already in serious trouble and make them apply across the board to every single American. That's not health care reform. That's taking a problem and making it worse. For me, I support a program that would be truly competition. You can transform health care much the same way we did telecommunications. I would model health care after telecommunications and revolutionize that. Like almost every American has a cell phone today. I think we could do the same thing in healthcare, but we wouldn't have had the same ubiquity of cell phones if we would have had the Federal Department of Cell Phone Technology.
Well, I'm sure that voters hope to see a Republican plan about healthcare coming to the table before November.
Well, I'll tell you, Obamacare sucked the wind out of any other discussion on healthcare. I had a proposal, great proposal, that would allow doctors to deduct the health care that they would provide that was uncompensated, that they could deduct that from their taxes. But the minute Obamacare passed, basically took the wind out of the sail of any other sort of proposal.
We are running out of time, but I want to get one more question very, very quickly, talking about partisan gridlock in Washington. It's something that's being discussed as being just an absolute non-starter for so many other previously uncontroversial issues, things like raising the debt ceiling. These things would have second prior to the last few years, some people have said. Do you see partisan gridlock as being a big issue in Washington? You're there every day.
You know, I'd like to think that I'm able to work through the partisan gridlock. I'm very proud to say that I passed a bill just before we left, 414 to 0. This wasn't naming a post office. It was a very important bill that kept the UN out of governing the Internet. I passed it with every single vote, including Ron Paul. You know, 414 to 0, that's a significant victory. And I did that by hard work and by reaching across party lines and to working with everybody. I believe it can happen, and that's how I work, how I do my business.
We are out of time. Thank you so much for joining us, Republican Congresswoman Mary Bono Mack. And now we're going to turn over to Patrick for a look at our very warm temperatures. Pat.